Alright guys, here we have the big one. This is going to be my mountaineering clothing layering video. And as you can see, it is quite extensive. Now for those of you just starting to get into mountaineering, this can seem entirely overwhelming. And by no means do you need all this clothing or all that footwear. I just wanted to lay out everything to talk about what I tend to bring while on my various mountaineering trips, and to hopefully give you guys some good suggestions and guidelines as to what you can get for mountaineering. Now, mountaineering is easily the main thing that I do during the guiding season. Since I live in Washington, most of the business for guide services comes from mountaineering. And so for some services like AAI, RMI, IMG, that big business is Mount Rainier. For the services I work for, that's mainly Mount Baker. Just because my services don't have the all-use permit sort of deal, commercial permits that those companies have. So I usually do about one Rainier trip a year, personally with my guide companies, and then I'm on Baker for the rest of mountaineering. And then I also get some trips to Shuckson, as well as other trips to like El Dorado, somewhere else in the North Cascades, Forbidden, Boston Basin area. I did do a Glacier Peak trip last year, so I'll probably do that again next year too. So there's a variety of different things that are called for during those trips. Forbidden Peak is a technical climb, whereas most of the time climbing on Baker, that's non-technical. So you would bring different gear for that, as well as Forbidden Peak, El Dorado, those are only a little less than 9,000 feet, as well as Baker is over 10. And so I kind of divide up my clothing groups in different heights, depending on how high I'm going. I have my 9,000 and below layering system, or clothing system in general, and then I have my 10,000 to about roughly 12,000 layering system, and then I have my 14,000 foot layering system for Rainier, as well as that system could easily be pushed into 18 and maybe even 20,000. So what I'm going to do is I have all the clothes right here. I'm going to just tell you what they are, and then I'm going to mix and match them for my different systems. But this gives a good outline of everything that I use while mountaineering. And alright, so starting at the legs, I always have my usual boxers, which are in my in all my videos just for moisture wicking. Right there are long underwear. I only use bottoms. I don't really use long underwear tops, but that's completely your choice if you want to do that. Rain pants over there, and then here are my two alpine pants, which this is a bit thicker than those pants. These are Mountain Hardwear alpine pants. Those are OR Prusik pants. And so this one's a bit thicker and it's a bit more burly, so I tend to use those on higher stuff. And those are a bit thinner but still have insulation on the legs. So I don't do this personally, but a lot of people will bring these pants. These are Feroci pants. They're just lightweight soft shell pants. And they'll put these under those to make the equivalent of this pair of pants, or they'd actually be somewhere in between thermally, between these pants and those. I personally don't like doing that. I don't like layering long underwear under thin soft shell pants, but that is an option, and it helps sort of save a little bit of money other than just buying different pairs, different weights of pants that you switch between. Me personally, I prefer the different weights of pants method, but that is another option for those of you who want to save a little bit of money and actually have a bit more functionality in your system. Going to top systems, these are going to be the most involved. Here I have my just average wicking base layer. That's a sun hoodie, which is basically the same as the average wicking base layer. I have lightweight fleece, which is my first insulation layer. Here's a bit more heavyweight fleece for colder days. Soft shell, which I will incorporate into my systems every now and again. I only have one version of those because I only need one version. Here I have my mid-weight insulation layers, though that's more of a lighter weight mid-weight insulation layer. I understand all this wording is getting ridiculous, but I have a bit more of a thicker one, again for colder temperatures, and the cool part is I can put these two on top of each other. Rain shells for the top body. Here's more bomb-proof one that I use a lot for more mountaineering type thing, and then a slightly lesser bomb-proof one which I'll use for nice weather mountaineering and peaks as well as alpine rock stuff. Here I have my puffy setups. More thinner puffy that can fit underneath these rain shells, and it packs down smaller. Then I have my bomber puffy, which is one of the thicker puffies I have. It actually has a raincoat on the outside, and then on the inside is the down insulation. So I can put that over any of my rain shells if I need to. Hand systems, you do want a variety of hand systems. I'd say you could get away with 3 or 4 pairs of gloves. And so like a really thin pair is nice on those warm days. I actually have 2 versions of these. These are both really thin pairs, great for warm mountaineering when you want the sun's beating down on you but you still want some hand protection. Getting into your mid-late layers like this one, or this one right here. I only ever bring 1 mid-weight pair of gloves unless it's like downpour the entire time, which most people don't go mountaineering in that sort of environment. So usually 1 pair of mid-weight gloves does the trick. Gore-Tex isn't bad. These ones are waterproof, the other 2 aren't. It's not exactly super necessary. And then I also have a thicker weight pair of gloves. I usually throw these on around like 8,000 or 9,000 feet when it's still in the morning, usually on summit days with Baker and Rainier. Hats, I personally only ever bring out this hat during really cold times like winter, but I always have a ball cap with me to help keep the sun out of my eyes, as well as a pair of Glacier sunglasses to deal with the relentless sun when it comes out and you're on the glacier. Sock systems right there. All of my boots are sized for medium weight socks, so I wear these all the time. Unless if I'm walking up in like trail runners for longer approaches and have my boots in my backpack, then I'll bring these thinner socks just because they fit better in my shoes. And I rarely ever bring out the large socks anymore. The only time I ever used to do it was for sleeping, and I would just throw these large socks over these and provide a bit more insulation for my feet. I may do that in the future, but for like the last season I haven't been doing that at all. Here I have gaiters. Right there are the hiking gaiters I showed in my last overall video. Here are the actual mountaineering gaiters. You can see they're a lot longer. They go up to just below your knee, and they may be made out of a bit more bomb-proof material. Good straps on the bottom, and they have this little hook right here for hooking your shoelaces on your boots. And so a nice pair of mountaineering gaiters is not bad to have because they help keep stuff out of your shoes as well as add a lot of warmth to your boot, which is actually a bit of a cheaper option, a lot cheaper option rather than buying a warmer boot. Going down to footwear, I have footwear included in this video because it is part of your layering system to help keep your feet warm, but they're also a very technical aspect of your system because having the proper footwear for the proper terrain is real important. And so I have an array of footwear. Here are these are La Sportiva Wildcats. I think, yeah, all these boots, all this footwear is La Sportiva. So right here are the Wildcats. These are just breathable trail runners. I use these for hiking. They got good tread on the bottom, and I'll often, in a mountaineering context, wear these on the approach up and have my boots on my backpack before switching into the boots for actual snow stuff. So going up 1 notch in insulation is actual boots made for the snow and the alpine. These are 3/4 shank boots, and I'm not going to go into too much detail into footwear because I want to do a separate video on footwear altogether. Just so you know, these are 3/4 shank boots. Some people call them 3-season boots, and they're definitely warmer than these. These are waterproof. They're meant to go in the snow, and you can also climb decently difficult rock in them. Moving up yet another notch, these are the Nepals. I think they're actually the Nepal Evos. They're the slightly lighter weight version. I think they redesigned these recently. And so these are full shank boots. So they have no stretch, or sorry, no flex in the cuff. And they're really great for ice climbing and really great general mountaineering boots. Up next, these two boots are new additions to my system this year. I haven't gotten a chance to use these ones yet, but I will eventually. And then these ones I've used a couple of times, including yesterday, so they're all nice and dirty. But these are newer boots that La Sportiva just came out with. These are the G5s. And so just like these are single boots, meaning that it's just the boot, you slip your foot inside, and then you're in the boot. So these are single boots, but they have an integrated gaiter on them. So what I used to do was grab the gaiter and put them over the Nepals on summit day to try to keep my feet warm, but that wasn't really working out for me too well. I have really cold toes, so I've upgraded my single boot to have a bit more warmer of a system in here, and having this gaiter on does really add a lot of warmth to the boot, as well as the inside design of the boot I feel is a bit more warmer materials. And then here is the ultimate boot that I would ever use for anything in the lower 48. And so this is the G2SM. It's a double boot, meaning that it actually has two separate boots inside of it. There's the other boot right there. Again, I'll go more in depth into this in my actual footwear video, but these are double boots, so they're made to be a lot more warm, a lot more insulating than single boots. You do lose some precision, like if you're actually ice climbing or even moderate, like mixed climbing in these things, but it's like you don't really need that on Rainier for certain. And I personally, again, with my cold toes, I need to bump up to the next line of boots just to deal with trying to keep my feet warm and comfortable. A lot of times you'll hear these boots referred to as 6,000 meter boots, and these ones also have an integrated gaiter, which is pretty burly, and I can easily fit my pant in there if I need to. So right there, that's the general all around of the layering systems and clothing and footwear and whatever I use for mountaineering. Now I'm going to take small pieces from all this lineup and tell you what I use in what situation. So I'm going to start off with my 9,000 and below layering setup. This is for Shuxon. I would use this on Shuxon, which is a little bit above. That's about 9.1. And then I use this exact system in the Boston Basin, Sahale, El Dorado, Forbidden, all that area, which is in the higher 8,000s. I use the same setup. Now that is mainly for Washington. If I go to Colorado, where you start at a higher altitude, and so you start climbing up into higher areas like 11 and 12,000, I would still use this setup just because of that's the way how it works best for me there, and it's sort of the same deal. I've used this exact layering system up to 12,000 in different alpine areas versus Washington. Whereas in Washington, with just the way it is here at 12,000, I would bump up some of the stuff to more heavy duty. And that just takes experimenting and knowing your body to get it right. All right, so starting at the feet, working my way up again. I have my 3/4 shank boots. These are great boots in the snow. They're fully crampon compatible because they have the heel welt in the back, so you can put some decent crampons on these. They're 3/4 shank, so a lot of times I find that they're comfortable enough to do the approach in and the climb. So a lot of times when I'm doing alpine climbs in these boots, I'm just in these boots the entire time from the point I leave the car to the point I get back to it. It is important I think it's important to know what socks you're dealing with. And so these REI socks, these are both midweight socks, but REI makes their midweight socks a bit thinner than Smart Wool in whatever design this is. And so I personally like using these REI socks in this boot because the thinner socks makes it easier for me to rock climb when I'm wearing these boots. And you'll find that that translates through all your footwear. Is the thicker socks you have, the less precise the footwear feels, regardless of how precise the footwear actually is. So I don't really wear these socks when I'm wearing these boots. For gloves, I really don't tend to take too many gloves. A lot of times when I did like Torment Forbidden Traverse or anything that's a full-on rock route, right? Forbidden Peak is also a full-on rock route with just a little bit of snow. So I'll just bring my belay gloves, and that'll be the only handwear I bring in the height of summer. Maybe if it's on the shoulder seasons, I want to be a bit warmer, I'll bring a mid-weight pair of gloves, like these Arc gloves, if I'm worried about being cold. But a lot of times, since I'm just rock climbing and the rock isn't as cold as snow, I'll just bring those gloves. And then they give me a technical piece of gear for like rappels, as well as provide warmth to my hands as well as protection. So that's already a lot more lightweight. These are the OR prusik pants. Like I explained before, they're just like normal soft shell pants, but they have a bit of a liner to keep you a bit warmer. And I find a lot of times I'm just rolling those pants up anyway into shorts because I'm overheating. So those are perfect for lower alpine climbs all the way up to Shuxin. As well as, actually I forgot to mention that this layering system, even though I say it's for about 9,000 and below, I make the exception on Glacier Peak, which is, I think it's around 10.5, and I wear all this exact same stuff, mainly because it's never that cold when we go to Glacier Peak. It's usually the height of like August or whatever. It's just, you're not fighting wind as much. You often don't get bad weather going all the way out there. And it's usually warmer. I just find it's warmer. So I'll wear all this stuff on Glacier Peak regardless of the height, even though it sort of violates my own rule. Same boxers, just usual. I don't ever put long johns in between these pants because if that's the case, then I'll just bump up my pant wear. As well as, I'll just get this out of the way, hat. I bring the trucker hat. I do not bring the insulating hat because there's enough insulation on my hoods. So upper body, I'm always going to have my shirt. Sometimes on more rock-related routes, I'll bring one of my more sun-related shirts with like a collar for a bit more protection. But this shirt would do just fine. Sun shirts, I bring this on Shuxin because there's a decent-sized glacier. But anything in like Boston Basin, I wouldn't bring this because there's really not that much glacier. On El Dorado, anything with a lot of snow, I'll bring a sun shirt. Then everyone knows my usual system here. This is the transition jacket. I've been calling that for a while. I'm not even sure if that's right. But so this is just a lightweight fleece to add some insulation. Some people are really big fans of bringing a soft shell with them. And then if I did, this is where I would sort of put it amongst the system. But lately I've cut this out of my system. I just wanted to include it here so that way you know what other people do. But me personally, I will not bring a soft shell up here. So my next step up in layering is actually a more mid-weight or a lighter weight mid-weight jacket. And this is for warmth. You stack this one on top of that one, it's actually pretty warm, and I usually can't move too much in that system. But the cool part is it's really nice to wear this right over that. And so it adds versatility where I can either add a little bit of insulation from that shell or that base layer or a lot. I always want to have insurance with me, and so that's why I have a raincoat. This is my lightest weight raincoat that still is fully featured, and it can fit over all those layers. It can even fit with that thing and all those layers. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I'm not really expecting to use that. And since I'm not really expecting it to be raining while I'm out on these technical routes, I also don't have rain pants in here. Some people won't leave home without their rain pants. I, for a long time, was exactly like that, but I find that I don't use them at all if I do. And while it's good for like Mount Baker, I like always having rain pants with me, but for the smaller peaks, I just sort of cut them out and haven't really regretted it yet. And then I have trouble leaving home without a puffy. I guess that's my big thing, is I don't like to be cold. And so maybe at the height of summer, I'll leave this behind and just go with the other two because that would be enough. On the shoulder seasons, I'm always gonna have a puffy. This is my most lightweight puffy, and I can put it over anything. And if anything, I'll use it as a pillow, and I kind of don't mind carrying the extra weight. So there you go. That's the simplicity of an 8,000 foot setup, or sorry, a 9,000 foot setup and below. And then I'll just sort of, I'm pretty much gonna either be substituting stuff out from here or adding stuff in for the 10,000 foot. But let me show you what I mean. All right, so now we're into 10,000 foot setup, and I would use this setup on Baker, which is 10,700 feet, and I also use this setup ice climbing and various other winter stuff, probably skiing as well. And so you'll find that it's actually not super different than the 8,000, but I just sort of substituted some of the stuff out and beefed up a few things. And so 8,000 meter, it's like, if it's colder, then you just bring another puffy along. But on Baker, since I'm on Baker all throughout the season, including the colder first, like the colder months at the end of spring and the colder months at the end of fall. And I find the end of fall to be, or the start of fall, to be even colder. I don't know why, maybe that's after a full summer being warm. And so I have a few layers down here that I'll actually substitute or add in, and I'll explain that as I go. So again, starting at the feet, here I have a couple extra boots. Right here are the Wildcat running shoes. Pretty much any shoes work for this, but some people with the full shank boots that don't flex at all while you walk up would enjoy having some more forgiving footwear. These things have all the flex you need, you know, while walking up through on the initial approach on all the dirt and the trail and stuff. And so sometimes I bring these along. For Glacier Peak, since that's like a 16-mile approach or whatever, I'll definitely have these. And just because I don't want to be in mountain boots for that long day of walking in, or sometimes that long 2 days of walking in. So I'll bring these out. I used to do this on Baker a lot, where I'd bring these and have these boots strapped to my backpack. But around the end of the season, I got really tired of carrying the boots. And so I ended up just wearing the boots the entire time. And I found that at the speed we usually go for client pace, I don't really get any blisters. But you do have to worry about that if you decide to wear this footwear the entire time. Around the heel is usually where a blister forms, again, because of the lack of flexing of the shoe and always walking uphill. So you have to watch out for that. So that's kind of personal preference. Here, I'll ditch these shoes, make things more clear. Here I have my actual mountain boots that I'm going to wear. So for a long time, virtually all this season except for the last 2 trips, I climbed Baker in these boots. And then because I got so sick of how cold my feet were getting, I finally bought these boots. And I used these for the last 2 trips, and I'm going to use them pretty much the entire time next season. So these are boots that a lot of people work for. I'm kind of high maintenance with my toes. A lot of people don't have as much trouble as me. So these boots would be just fine for Baker and Rainier, actually, for that matter. But what you can do to increase the warmth is they do have these little inserts to help make things warmer, but also throw some gaiters on. And I can have a separate video talking about how to put on gaiters. They're actually a bit more complicated than they look, but and you can put them on wrong. We've seen all sorts of different ways, but these things just essentially they hook around the cuff of the boot, and then they go up to where your knee is, the start, or just below your knee. That helps add a bit of warmth to your foot system. If you want boots that are even warmer than that, then ones with the built-in gaiter work out. Again, pretty much any single full shank boot will work for Baker, and that's just understanding what you do or how your body works. 3-season boots work too. I have friends who climb in those all the time for Baker, and I am very jealous. I've already explained this. Mid-weight smart wool socks. I really like these ones. I just found them this year, so that's pretty much what I roll with. Going over to handwear, I just laid out 3 pairs of gloves, and you can mix and match whichever gloves. But this is usually what I'll bring for Baker, is I'll have my lightweight gloves. These are great for when the sun comes out on the glacier and you still want to protect your hands, but it's super hot. So those things have basically no insulation. These are actually meant for like hard dry tooling, hard ice climbing. And so they have really grippy palms, and you can do whatever you need in them, but they help protect your hands. Midweight gloves, which I'm rolling in for most of the time. These still have some dexterity, but add some insulation for your hands, which is really nice. And then heavier weight gloves, which I put on for the summit day, usually around 8,000 or 9,000. And it's usually about the coldest time of night too. And so these sort of lack in dexterity, but by that time I'm just carrying my ice axe and not doing anything important. So that's when I'll pull those out. And I'll do the same exact system on Rainier as well. Standard baseball hat, again, just for sun protection along with sunglasses. My lower leg system. So I took out the prusik pants and added in my mountain hardware pants, which again are more burly and They come with other features. The Outdoor Research Cirque pants are kind of equivalent to this, but these pants are cool because they have this little scuff guard on the inside. A lot of these pants are coming with this now, and it helps protect your pants from crampon kicks. They also have the zipper that goes up the side, and the point of this is just to extend the pant out a little bit more, and then you can ski with them. So you can fit ski boot cuffs in these pants, which is really nice. That's why I ski in these pants as well. And so about every clothing company will make some form of alpine pant. I'll just wear these pants with my boxers. I don't do long underwear for Baker unless it's a really cold trip, like end of the season, or we're actually expecting it to snow on us in camp. It's a good time to put in long underwear. And then I have my rain pants. I bring rain pants on every trip, even if it's not supposed to rain, because I wear these on summit day to add a bit more insulation to my legs, as well as to protect my legs from wind. And if it is snowing or raining, then I have the pants. So I wear those regardless of the weather on summit day every trip. Unless it's like super hot, but I'll just take them off then. Usually I do that in the morning, and then when the sun comes out and it gets super hot, then I'll rip those pants off. And the cool part about those ones is you can undo the zipper all the way up the side, and you can take them off while still wearing your harness. You don't have to take off your harness to take off those pants, which is really great. Upper body on Baker, I'm always in one of these shirts, and then usually I'll wear that shirt the walk up and the walk down day, and then on summit day I'll wear this sun hoodie. And so I bring two base layers because they do tend to stink pretty bad after a little bit, and then I just live with the stench, but I wear this on summit day. And because this is a sun hoodie, it has the hood. Where is it? It has a hood, so that way I can pull it up over. I put it over my hat, and then I put my helmet on top of that. I have a big enough helmet to fit a couple hoods and my hat under it, and then that way it'll protect my neck. Moving up in layering, these are the same as for the 8,000 foot one, where I have my same lightweight insulation, same mid-weight sort of insulation, and I'll wear that for most of the season with the warmth that it provides. It's good enough, along with my raincoat, which is this is the 4A by OR, and it's a little bit beefier than the last raincoat, so it helps me out a lot. On summit day, you're waking up at like 2 a.m., so I put on all the clothes to keep warm. But before we leave, I'll only have this layer, and then my raincoat. And so the raincoat's for protecting against wind and any weather if we have it. And also it does trap a little bit of heat. But if I wear all three of these layers, it'll trap too much heat, and I'll get super hot before we even get out of camp. So I'll just wear this guy for a little bit of insulation and this dude. And as long as we keep on moving, I'll be just fine. And then for getting out of the tent right at 2 a.m. or when it gets cold at night, waking up in the morning, I always have my ever-present puffy. And this is a more beefed up version of the last one. It's bigger, so it has a bit more loft. And it has a puffy on the inside, but a raincoat on the outside. And so a lot of times I can put this puffy over the raincoat. I still try not to get it wet, just because then I have two wet layers in any sort of preset, which is extra annoying. So this is my only layer I try to get wet, but it does have that option, and it does make it fairly windproof and a bit warmer since the wind's not cutting into it. And so that's sort of what I have set up for the top body. Unless if it's really cold, my last trip of Baker was the last weekend of September. And so that was pretty damn cold. And so what I did is I beefed up my layering system. I threw this reg jacket in there, and we know from the start of the video that it's slightly more insulating than that. And so throughout this whole system, I had an extra insulation layer, and I got made fun of by one of my friends because I had all of them on one morning, and I had like 7 layers on or whatever. But I was nice and warm. In less extreme circumstances, I could always substitute that red layer out for this dude because they're basically the same sort of niche, and I could be even warmer in these 3 layers put together. Or another thing I could do is substitute this layer out for this R1, And then this is a bit thicker than that one. And so on colder days, I could just switch either one or both of the jackets out for the heavier weight counterparts and not be as cold. And so that allows me a bit of versatility in the layering system, as well as I guess for my legs I could add in long johns if I am really worried about being cold. So that's everything that I would normally bring with me on a 10,000 foot peak in the Washington area. And now I'm going to bump it up to my final stage at 14,000, which I mainly use only on Rainier and maybe super cold Baker climbs. So here we have it. Yeah, not really much has changed for bumping up to the 14,000 ceiling. Mainly stuff to the lower body, and then upper body I switched out the thinner light insulating layer with a thicker light insulating layer. That's the Patagonia R1. And then depending on temperatures, I may roll with that same blue layer or switch it out for this thicker red one. And that depends if the temperatures are really cold. The one time, this is important to keep in mind, the one time that my guide services with me climb up Rainier is usually in July. And so the weather on Rainier is pretty good in July. So I can get away with more skimpy clothing versus like I ran into one of my friend who worked for, I think, AAI, and he was doing Rainier trips in September. And so he's going to bring a lot more or a lot different clothing systems than me in my July trip. But that does allow me to sort of keep my system pretty similar and allow me to sort of decrease on weight a bit. But then after that mid layer, then I have my raincoat as before and my puffy as before. Going down to lower body, I use the same boxers. Most of the time, most Rainier climbs are 4 days. And so for every day except for summit day, I'm in those pants, which are the Mountain Hardwear Alpine pants. The same ones I use for Baker. And then I have my rain pants for any sort of precip or whatever. But I also wear the rain pants on summit day, in addition to long johns, which I'll layer like boxers, long johns, alpine pants, rain pants. And so everyone uses, a lot of the Rainier guiding groups use the term 3 on top, or 5 on top, 3 on bottom. This is what they're referring to, is long johns, alpine pants, rain pants. And so, just mainly these guys for warmth and these guys for wind protection and bad weather protection if you have that. And then the 5 on top come from base layer, insulating, slightly heavier insulating, raincoat, puffy. 1, 2, 3, yeah, that's 5. So that's actually what any guiding group or any guide service pretty much recommends for Rainier, the same setup as before. And they recommend that for a reason, because it works. Along with that one base layer, I also bring my sun hoodie again, because I switch into the sun hoodie anytime we're spending a lot of the day in the snow. Last guided trip on Rainier I did last July, we had to camp at Emmons Flats, which are just above the Shipwreck Rock Camp, whatever that one's called, Sherman, I think. And so we spent a lot of time just standing in the snow, and so it's nice to have more protection than usual. And along with that, I got my sun hat, along with my glacier glasses, to help protect against sun. Handwear, exactly the same as on Baker. I have my thin gloves right here for anytime the sun's beating down and I still want hand protection. Midweight gloves for just about everything in between. And then these gloves just for the summit. Again, about on Rainier it'd be more around 11,000 or so. I'd switch into those gloves. Whenever my hands start getting cold on summit day, that's when I switch into them. My footwear, so I have my G2SM double boots. Here, again, like brand new, because I haven't gotten a chance to use them yet. They're double boots with the inner boot, the outer boot. They'll keep my feet nice and warm on the summit day. A lot of times you could also just, if you have a lighter weight boot, put in a chemical foot warmer. That helps out a lot. Or if you want to spring for the money, those heated socks work great. And I'm probably going to buy a pair of those when I want to spend $150 on socks. Because these are full shanks and very bulky and very warm, I don't need them while walking up on the approach. So this is a great time to have just trail runner shoes with lighter weight socks to walk up the trail with. But these shoes are with me all the way up the mountain until our final camp before the summit day. So that is kind of a bit of a trade-off. I forgot to mention, mid-weight socks in the bigger boots. The grade of boot changes, but the socks stay the same. That's the way I like doing it. I just thought of if you're doing like the DC route and you're on snow immediately that day, I would probably just rock these boots the entire time. If I'm doing the Emmons route, which those are the two main guided routes on Rainier, then I'm definitely going to bring these because I don't want to walk 3 or 4 miles on dirt before we get to the snow. So that's about my entire mountaineering layering system. You can see how I just start with like a baseline of 8,000 feet, which is just about the amount of height any alpine route starts at. And then you can see how I had the setup for that. And what I do is I just slightly change that setup in order to get up higher and still stay comfortable. You want to make sure that your body is staying at the proper degree, 98 degrees, and you want to make sure that everything is still working properly in your body while you're up at these extreme altitudes, because you're already in an environment that your body was not built for. And so by having good gear that gets the job done in a proper system that you understand for your body, that's how you can sort of maintain that goal. It does take a lot of trial and result, but eventually you sort of understand what your body needs, as well as doing a lot of research. I hope that I can, with this video, I can sort of steer you in the right direction, but that's sort of how I tackle layering systems. One thing that I don't talk about, or one thing that I haven't talked about in any of these layering systems is sleeping bags, which is kind of funny because a lot of people would say a sleeping bag is separate from a layering system, but I find that it pretty much plays into the layering system as just a big, warm sack that you put your body in to keep warm overnight. I would maybe change up my sleeping bag setup depending on which, or I definitely would actually, depending on the time of year, as well as which mountain I'm going for in terms of being an 8,000, a 10, or a 14. But I'm going to have a separate video on sleeping bags to talk about all of that. So thanks for watching my video. And then if you have anything you'd like to add for your personal self, or anything you think that I missed or want me to do a video on, then you can leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.